If you step out of the vehicle too fast and aren't paying attention to what's going on around you, you may get hit by another car. The insurance company is always going to choose to believe the option that results in them paying the least amount of money possible. Everything you say will not only be used against you, but everything you don't say will be used against you. You don't know the evidence you need to preserve and what's being destroyed while you're waiting. The sooner you have an attorney involved, I can't stress enough, the better. You've been through enough. This is Now What? Your guide to recovering after life blindsides you. I'm Jordan Travis, a personal injury attorney here in Colorado. And together we'll cut through the confusion, expose the insurance games, and let you get the clarity you deserve. This is Jordan Travis with the Now What podcast. This is going to be episode 5. Today I'm going to talk about the first 72 hours after a car crash. What to do, what evidence to preserve, what photos you need to take, all that type of information. In particular, because it's unlikely at that stage that you would have an attorney involved in your case. And if you do, great. But even if you don't, there are certain things that you should do after a car crash and certain things that you shouldn't do. These are the types of tips and information I would tell my own family members if they were involved in a car crash and I wasn't present to help and assist. So, and frankly, these are the things I would do if I was involved in a car crash myself. So, this is a guide on what to do after a car crash before anything else happens and just a stage step by step way of approaching everything. So, at the scene, you get hit, whether it's a T-bone, it's a red light, and you got rear-ended, any sort of impact happens. At that point, first thing you need to do, obviously, is breathe, take a second, check yourself to the best you can of your abilities. Don't feel like you need to rush and get out of the car right away unless there's a fire, obviously, or some other exigent circumstance. But for the most part, check yourself out, slow down, because a lot of people can get into worse injury situations or even worse, just more dangerous situations by rushing to get out of the car before they've checked themselves and their surroundings. If you're bleeding, you may not know it yet. You may have a really bad injury you may not know about. Or if you step out of the vehicle too fast and aren't paying attention to what's going on around you, you may get hit by another car. And those are called secondary collisions. So once an accident happens, if the people or the cars aren't moved or some sort of accident happens, and then a secondary one, which again, that's why it's a secondary collision. Another one happens just because of the debris and the distraction and the people involved and just not paying attention. Everyone gets distracted, including other drivers who are looking at what's going on. So after a crash happens, take a second, let the other cars slow down, let them react to it, check yourself out, talk to anyone in the back seat, but don't necessarily rush out of the car to go check them out first. It seems like it would be hard to do, especially if you have kids in the back or you have other loved ones that you want to go check on. And obviously, in the moment, it's going to be hard to remember this, but that is the first thing I would tell you is sit in the car just for a second, as long as it takes to collect yourself, understand what happened, make sure you're safe to move, and then it's safe to move around the car. So safe from a injury standpoint, and then safe from a just not getting them into another bad situation. The next thing to do, if you can, is try to move the cars out of the way or move yourself out of the way. It doesn't necessarily have to even be the cars. And in fact, sometimes it's better to have the cars in the crash location for photos and that type of thing. But the first thing after you get out of the car, though, is distance yourself from the car, from get off the road to the best you can, move over to the shoulder if you can, just get somewhere safe, move your property somewhere safe if you can. And just if it's blocking traffic at that point, obviously jump out, check yourself out, check out family members, that type of thing, and then get out into a safe location as soon as possible. If the vehicle's not drivable, or even if it is, after that, you need to call 911. I have a lot of clients who don't call 911 and the police never show up, or even if they do call 911, the police are obviously nowadays anyway, they're busy. They have a lot of things to deal with in the world, just the way it is. And a lot of times they don't respond to crashes unless it's reported as severe injuries or parties need help moving the cars. I think that's unfortunate. I think police being involved in a case is almost always helpful just to help come to the scene, take down witness statements, and sort out who's saying what and to write a citation. In Colorado, on the civil case, citations, again, only on the civil case, are not admissible at trial against the defendant, but the rest of the police report might be, including a lot of what the officer saw, what the officer's statements that they gathered from other parties, what the written statements from parties are. Either way, having an officer on scene is almost always a good thing to do, if nothing else, to document what is going on in the case, because maybe you would be surprised, maybe you wouldn't be, but things change very quickly from what happens at the scene to once insurance gets involved and people realize you're making a claim of damages against them. So the person who caused the accident may say something at the scene like, no problem, I'll admit fault. It's all my fault. I'm sorry. Just contact my insurance and they'll take care of it. Either the insurance won't take care of it or that person will change their story later. Things go weird very quickly, again, once people get defensive. So calling 911, having them respond to the scene is a good way to help just document all the sides of the case. And it's a very important piece of information just to try to document what happened. Essentially, if you don't have a police officer write the report and determine who's at fault, the insurance company is going to do it on their own. And I promise you, they're not going to be favorable towards your side of events. Like if it's a he said, she said situation where the defendant's saying something, you're saying something, the insurance company is always going to choose to believe the option that results in them paying the least amount of money possible. So that's just the unfortunate reality. If the police will not come to the scene for any reason, like it's a bad day in Colorado, we get like blizzard notifications and blizzard warnings where officers are basically instructed, unless it's a severe crash that's hindering roadway conditions, they won't respond and just instruct people to exchange information. If that's the case, that they won't respond, still call 911 and give a statement to them on the phone with either the operator or try to get an officer on the phone, but more than likely you'll be able to do it through the operator. Tell them what happened, who's at fault, basically get a phone call of the entire sequence of events as you remember it. And if you can get the defendant or whoever caused the crash to do the same, get on the phone and say their version of events to 911, that will be very helpful because later on we can always go back and get the audio file from the 911. Even if police don't respond, there will eventually be a way to get a 911 audio version. So if for some reason they refuse to respond to the scene, that's my suggestion, is tape down everything you can and call 911. Hopefully they do respond, because that's the easiest way to deal with it. Then after you call 911 and you talk to the operator, then usually at that stage, it's time to, assuming it's moderate to minor collision. So, because again, a lot of times people don't know the severity of the collision until later. So, unless it's a severe case and you're being transported by ambulance and you're actually able to stay on scene, if you're able to stay on the scene, at that point, exchange information. You do not need to say anything to the defendant. It's not going to, the person who caused the crash, it frankly is almost always not going to do any good. My recommendation is exchange information, take photos of their driver's license, of their insurance information, of their license plate, all that type of thing. Document what you can, but anything you tell the person at the scene, they could go tell the adjuster, and then it may be used against you. And vice versa. Anything they tell you, obviously, if you tell me that it impacts it, that's something that I would do. So I had one client actually at the scene. She was hit by a driver who had sideswiped her, and that guy got out of his car and came over and tried to punch out her window and fight her, even though it was his fault. He was cited at the scene, but tried to punch out the window and stuff. She took her on the phone. She took an audio recording because she was on the phone with 911 of him, and you could hear him banging on the window and yelling and screaming at her through the window and trying to get into her car to, I guess, fight her or something. Who knows? But that's why having that audio recording made such a big difference, because later on the insurance company tried to act like that didn't happen at all, that it was just an accident and that was it. Well, this was way beyond that. This guy was aggressive driving and he frankly tried to fight. I mean, he tried to commit assault at the scene because of the car accident. So again, that's why calling 911 is important. It documents everything as you're doing it. After that, the next step, assuming you get everything at the scene taken care of, do take photos of your car again if it's safe to do so. Take photos of their car, front, back, any angle you can. The more photos, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And then after that, your next step is to, within the first 24 hours, is to go see a doctor of some kind if you can and if you need it. I'm not going to tell you to go get seen for no reason at all, but at the same time, a delay in treatment, if you have any pain whatsoever, you don't know at that stage the severity of it, to be honest with you. Most people don't. They have adrenaline going at the scene. They still have adrenaline afterward. By that point, it's probably been a long day. Last thing you realistically, I know you want to do is to go to the ER or urgent care or primary care or something like that to get checked out, but it is important to do so. Those doctors need to make sure you're not severely injured and you don't know about it, like internal bleedings type things. And even if it's not that as severe, getting seen and checked out by a doctor is just a smart thing to do for your body, just to make sure that you've had eyes on everything and have had a chance to get evaluated. You don't know what you don't know, I guess is the best way to phrase it. You don't know how badly hurt you are until you've had a chance to actually get an MRI done or get an X-ray done or get a there's so many injuries that are non-visible to the human eye. You don't have a broken bone poking through the skin, but you may have had other issues inside. We see it a lot with, spine injuries, whiplash type injuries. The insurance companies like to call them soft tissue injuries, which I think is a funny term because anything is soft tissue. Your heart is a soft tissue. Your brain is a soft tissue. Everything is a soft tissue except for your bones. So to try to sit there and say the case is invaluable because it's a soft tissue injury is just, it always bugs me when I'm talking to adjusters because your most vital organs, they're all soft tissue. To say that the case isn't valuable because it's soft tissue, it astounds me. It's an intentional act by the insurance companies to downplay, and it's trained into them from the very inception that as soon as they start working at those companies. So it's something to keep in mind too that those soft tissue injuries, the neck, back, spine, basically your entire body, those are frankly, the most important parts that can get hurt. A broken bone is actually easier to deal with than most soft tissue injuries from a medical standpoint. Every doctor I've talked to has always said that. Broken bone's a lot easier to deal with than a herniated disc. So go get checked out within the first 24 hours. If you have any inclination, any pain at all, you need to rule it out. The sooner you get treated, not only is it better for your body, it's better for you. It frankly is better for your case, but that's not why you do it. You do it for yourself, for your body to make sure that you're not missing anything and you don't know what's going on. We have a client or had a client that once he was in a bad car crash, but he thought he was fine, younger kid, 19 years old, and had no previous back pain or back issues. He did go to the ER after the crash because he felt some back pain and he thought it was just whiplash type injuries, but he went and to go get checked out. Good thing he did because his vertebrae in his back weren't necessarily broken, but they were pushing on his spinal cord. So in the event he goes home and does a load of laundry or lifts anything, bends the wrong way, that type of thing, he could have been paralyzed from this. I mean, he was literally having a spinal cord have compression on it, and he really didn't know how bad it was until he went to the ER and got checked out. So it's a good thing he did it in that case because then now he knew what to do and what not to do and how to deal with it medically. But it's just an example of you don't know what you don't know. That's why going within the first 24 hours is okay. I mean, you really could have serious injuries and you just don't even know about it. The other thing to keep in mind within the first, in my head, it's sometimes 24 hours, it can be 72 hours, but either way, within the first couple of days, if the insurance company has been notified of a claim, a lot of times they will call you and try to get a recorded statement. You do not have to give a recorded statement to the at fault party's insurance carrier. You have no obligation to do that whatsoever. If your insurance is asking for a statement, it has to be your insurance under your policy, not something where they have State Farm, you have State Farm. You only have to give it for your version of State Farm, and that's a big distinguisher there. But either way, as far as recorded statement goes, for the most part, and even with your own insurance, you don't have to do it right away. Don't give a recorded statement is my recommendation. It's not something that you fully understand what's going on. They have a list of questions. everything you say will not only be used against you, but everything you don't say will be used against you. So that can include if they ask you how you're feeling and how many injuries you have, you could list off the first five that are bothering you, back pain, neck pain, knee pain, whatever else is going on. If you don't list the number six through 10, they'll turn around later on down the road and try to say, well, you weren't complaining of shoulder pain after the accident or something along those lines. Again, we just had this happen so many times that it's important to remember what you say will be used to the best they can against you, but also what you don't say. If you don't mention certain injuries, you don't mention certain treatment, you don't mention what's happened to you or what you've done, they will use that against you as well. You don't mention witnesses at the scene, and all of a sudden they don't know about those people. Like there are a whole lot of different ways that those recorded statements can go wrong. They will try to, and that's why they try to get them, frankly, within usually the first 72 hours of being notified of a claim. They want those right away. And in fact, in most insurance carriers, it's in their standard opening letter that says, "Hello, I'm your new adjuster. I'm assigned to your claim. Can you give me a recorded statement?" That's usually the first thing that is out of their mouths, and there's a reason for that. So don't do that. Colorado is an at fault state, meaning the at fault party has to pay for the crash. And frankly, it's the insurance company's job to minimize the payments that is paid out under their insurance policy. I mean, they're there essentially to protect their insured from liability, which means also protect them from paying out as much or as little as possible. After that, so first 24 hours, you've gone and seen a doctor if you needed it. You've gotten checked out. You haven't talked to any insurance carrier for a recorded statement, anything like that. Then you're starting to get into the 72-hour after a crash phase. That's when you probably have a chance to feel a little bit better. You may be moving around more and having a better understanding of how this crash impacted you. You're probably more sore, that type of thing. In that first 72 hours, even if you took pictures at the scene of your car, I would take pictures again of your car if you have access to it and it's not at a tow yard or something. Use your judgment to know where to take the photos out, but I would tell you a lot of people miss like going underneath the cars or even just sticking your phone underneath and having someone yourself or otherwise take a photo of the underneath undercarriage, that type of thing. That's something to do within the first 72 hours just to document the way your car was. Essentially, you want to preserve the evidence in your case. If you have bruising on your body, that's going to go away pretty quickly. Take pictures of the bruising, take pictures of any scars, cuts. I mean, you probably don't have scars at that stage, but if you have like open wounds of any kind and you have scabs on them or something along those lines, all of that information is going to go away relatively soon, especially like bruising and stuff. So take photos of it within the first 72 hours or as soon as you can. And then at that stage, you probably are getting to the point where you have enough time and energy to call an attorney. And that is definitely something I would recommend. You may have been able to do it beforehand, but for sure, the sooner you get an attorney involved, the better. Number one, you want someone in there trying to investigate, and I did this on talked about this on another podcast, but investigate the limits, investigate witnesses. There's a lot of evidence that gets destroyed or deleted within 72 hours or starting after 72 hours. Trucking cases are notorious, and my other podcast on trucking collisions covers that. But trucking cases are notorious for trying to get their vehicle repaired and back on the road as soon as possible, which seems legitimate and fair, but that also means overriding a lot of data in terms of the truck itself and all the repairs and everything you want to take pictures of or you may want to download can disappear within the first 72 hours. So getting an attorney involved is very important early on in the case to preserve evidence, ask that it be preserved. You can be will focus on your treatment side of things and the attorney can be dealing with all the insurance for you. They can be dealing with the medical bills for you. They can and getting those set up. They can be dealing with the preservation of evidence for you. That's all the stuff that you would normally think, oh, this is a pain to deal with right after an accident. That's the stuff that an attorney should probably be handling for you. The sooner you get someone involved, the better. You basically, as I see it, our job is to make it so the client's side of things all they have to worry about is going to their doctor's appointment and following the doctor's instructions and getting better as fast as they can. That's all I want my clients to worry about. The billing, the evidence, the background searches, the limits, all of that's my job. That's what I'm here for. So that's why it's better to get an attorney involved early because you don't want to have to worry about that. How much is my car worth? How much are my medical bills? All that type of stuff. The other thing to keep in mind, you do have, and this is a couple days after the crash, you do have some time to get everything evaluated. So even though it's early on in the case at this stage, and just in the back of your head, it's important to note if it's a standard negligence claim in Colorado. So a normal car accident, there's no trucking issue, there's no punitive damage issue, there's nothing along those lines, and you weren't hit by like a emergency vehicle, like an ambulance or something like that, fire truck, anything along those lines. If it's just a standard one civilian to another civilian car crash, you usually the statute of limitations in Colorado is 3 years. I would recommend consulting with an attorney to double check on your case, but the statute does say 3 years for negligence claims in Colorado. The reason I'm hedging so much on this is because there are 2 years on certain types of claims, such as wrongful death and claims regarding certain types of punitive damages. Certain types of negligence have different claims, but the standard negligence claim for a personal injury case is 3 years. If it's a, and this is where it can really bite you, is if it's a governmental entity, so a government entity, like we see it sometimes with police officers, having the lights and sirens on and hitting another car or not. It's just the police officer hitting a car, fire truck, a ambulance, any sort of entity along those lines. The limitations date, the statute of limitations is a lot different because it's a governmental immunity case. It's called a CGIA, Colorado Governmental Immunity Act, is what that stands for. But it's a CGIA case, and in those claims, you have 182 days to notify the governmental entity of your claims. So you have less than essentially 6 months. And that goes by very quickly in cases. So again, any type of case, whether it's big, small, again, you don't know what you don't know. If you don't deal with these type of things day in, day out, you don't know the limits that apply. You don't know the evidence you need to preserve and what's being destroyed while you're waiting. The sooner you have an attorney involved, I can't stress enough, the better. I'm not saying that from a selfish perspective, frankly. I'm just saying it basically because there's a lot of moving parts in cases early on and a lot of things that can get screwed up that impact the case for years down the road if it's not properly handled within the first couple weeks at most. Sometimes within the first day of a crash, it may be improperly handled and then it's done forever. I've talked a little bit already, and I'll do this again. We talked about the insurance limits and how important that is to find out. That is something that I would recommend early on in a case trying to uncover. The insurance company of the at fault party probably will not tell you what they are, but there are certain ways you can acquire that. The statute is called 10-3-1117. Again, that's Colorado Revised Statute 10-3-1117. Either way, there's certain things an attorney can do early on in a case, and finding out what the insurance limits are will impact very quickly how fast you can get treatment with whom and that type of thing. And along those lines, same thing with punitive damages. If the defendant or whoever caused the crash was acting funny at the scene or in any way, the law leaves it pretty open of what's punitive damage or what is warranting of punitive damages. And punitive as a word just means to punish or for a in the legal sense anyway, for these cases, it's not necessarily to compensate the injured victims, it's to punish the defendant for their actions. So our office has gotten punitive damages in cases such as cell phone usage while driving. We've gotten punitive damages in cases where a defendant woman was putting on her makeup while driving, like actively putting on her makeup. Those are the type of things that impact the statute of limitations. It impacts the evidence you need. It impacts the investigation that needs to be done, witnesses, all sorts of things that you wouldn't have otherwise known. And in fact, in particular on the punitive damages for the makeup, remember ultimately we went all the way through to trial on that case. And one of the biggest reasons we won on that trial was because at the scene, the investigating officer or our client, I can't remember which one exactly, but someone had taken a picture of the inside of the defendant's car. So something normally wouldn't be. taking a photo, and this is why photos are so important. Someone took a scene of or a photo of the inside of the defendant's car, and on the airbag, you can see an imprint of the defendant's face where her makeup was being applied. Like it was literally like her face got planted into the airbag when it deployed. That because ironically later she was denying that she was putting on makeup. So for years she denied she was putting on makeup, and we have a photo of the makeup like literally being pulled off of her face from the airbag, and as well as makeup being on the floor and all that around her. So that made such a big difference in the case, and is honestly, I think the biggest reason why we won and especially got punitive damages. So I would just highly recommend getting someone involved earlier on a case that knows the evidence that they're looking for. That was an unusual piece of evidence you would probably not have personally known to preserve otherwise, and we got lucky that an officer did know to take a photo of it. But a lot of officers may not have even responded to the call because that was a few years ago now, so they had more staffing then, or they may not have known to take photos of the inside of the defendant's vehicle, so you have to do that yourself. So those are the type of things that, to the best you can, get as much evidence at the scene as you can within the first right after the accident, honestly, if you're able to. Okay, so the next part of what to do after a car crash is essentially you're done. It's 72 hours is done. You've preserved the evidence you can. You've taken the photos. You've gotten checked out by a doctor. Hopefully, you got an attorney involved. But even if you haven't, what happens next? What happens after 72 hours? And that is essentially where every case is different. It depends on how badly hurt you are. If you get checked out by the ER and they say you need a whole bunch of treatment and stuff, obviously you need to go forward with the treatment. And you gotta it's recommended anyway. How our office handles cases is we have to wait until you're done treating. You're at maximum medical improvement, which doesn't mean you're 100% of where you were before the accident, but it means is that a doctor has determined it is as good as you're going to get after the accident. So you may have lost some of yourself, or you may be permanently disabled in some way or another, or parts of you maybe. And if it's permanent, it's you can still be at MMI, but which again is maximum medical improvement. But before that stage, you don't know, and frankly, any attorney probably doesn't realistically know what your case is worth, because it's hard to say what your bills are, what the future bills are going to be. That's when you can start understanding what the total amounts are for medical claims and for how it's impacted your life, because you may get better, you may not. Until you reach that point, you don't know. In the meantime, the insurance company is going to keep calling you if you haven't given them a recorded statement. Again, your attorney should run interference on that. They're not entitled to it if it's the at fault party. You should be able to pull police reports. They will be running your social media searches. So the insurance company will. So don't post photos of the accident or anything along those lines. I always tell clients, and this is something we recommend early on, is we understand that a lot of people have to live their lives, and some people even run businesses through social media and everything. But just be careful what you post on there. The insurance company is going to be looking at it. I don't care if that's how you have to live your life and everything like that. As long as you're following your doctor's recommendations for whatever your limitations are and you post about it, that's fine. An insurance company may make it out to be a bigger deal than what it is, but frankly, I'm not that scared of that. It's a scare tactic more than anything. There's 2 ways of looking at it. You can get in a car crash and sit on the couch all day long and not do anything and just try to recover from your injuries, which is fine. That no problem with that. If that's what you need to do to recover from your injuries, that's okay. And don't post anything on social media about it, that type of thing. Okay, that's one way of dealing with it. And then the insurance company is going to sit there and say, well, see, this person is exaggerating. They're wallowing. They're not moving on. The insurance company will make it up like you're either faking or you're exaggerating. Conversely, you could go after a car crash, you could be pretty hurt or severely hurt even, and you could do your best to go back to your life, which involves, maybe hanging out with family or friends or a vacation here and there. As long as you're within your doctor's recommendations, even if something like a photo of you being at vacation with your family gets posted on your social media by your family member's account. Something like that happens and the insurance company tries to make it up, get out to be a big deal in your case, which they have done in our cases. To me, that seems innocuous. And in fact, it seems like a tactic that may very easily bite the insurance company in the end, because also my clients trying to go on and live their life. They're not wallowing. They're not sitting waiting for things to get better or just waiting for them. They're trying to live their life as if this didn't happen. And if they can't do that perfectly, that's because of the accident. But to sit there and act like you have no you can't live your life, but at the same time, if you don't live your life, you're gonna get punished for it. That's it's a catch 22 no matter what you do. So that's my recommendation is be careful what you post on the social media. Don't post about the accident. Don't be stupid like that. But definitely just be aware that they're watching it. You live your life however you see fit, you and your doctors think is appropriate for you. But I would not I would not just post anything on social media, but at the same time, I wouldn't do anything or do nothing at all if that was what I relied upon for my income or it was part of my normal habit. One other thing, or a couple other things to wrap this up. The insurance company, if you're not represented, or even if you are, frankly, it doesn't matter. They will offer you a settlement as soon as possible. That is a scam almost always. It is a low value. It's low value based on what they think the case is worth at that time. But more importantly, it's probably low value of what the case is worth long term because at that point you haven't had all the treatment. So, like, let's say you get in a car crash and they offer you a settlement within the first month of the crash and they determine that they want to offer you $2,000 within the first month. Well, the problem with that is you don't know if you are going to fully chances are anyway, you're probably still recovering from your injuries. If you don't recover from your injuries all the way, that $2,000 is never going to cover everything. So my recommendation is don't accept any settlement offer quickly. It's almost and in fact, I've never seen a fair offer been offered quickly. That's not in the best interest of the insurance company. They just never do that. They make offers quickly sometimes, but they're usually not fair for what the case's value is, their true value. They're just trying to get either out right away or get it done for a small amount. And in some instances, this is something I've seen happen quite a bit lately in Colorado anyway, is insurance companies offering let's a small amount of cash for your settlement. Plus, they will do what's called this is what the adjusters always say. Plus, we will consider up to an additional $5,000 or whatever number in your medical treatment. That is, again, such a scam. They are obligated to consider any treatment that's reasonable, necessary, and related to your crash. They are legally have to consider that. Otherwise, they're not even abiding by the terms of their own contract. So to sit there and try to say, we'll give you $2,000 now, and then if you treat, we'll give you maybe, if we deem it necessary, an extra $5,000 it just astounds me that people buy those arguments, but people don't know better. So that's why this podcast is created. This is why I'm trying to get this message out there. But those type of offers, I think, frankly, the Colorado legislature should do something about because it is what I consider and what many in the law to be considered an illusory contract. And what that means is that it's a their offer of paying you an additional $5,000, they're obligated to consider that amount anyway. And all they're agreeing to do is consider that amount. If they deem, and again, those terms are always, if we deem it necessary, we'll pay you an additional 5,000. Well, if it's necessary, they're going to pay you the 5,000 anyway because that's what they owe you. So that whole concept of we may consider additional money down the road is beyond astounding to me that they can get away with those type of offers. So if that's happening in your case, chances are the insurance company is trying to take advantage of you. Almost, in fact, 100% that they're trying to take advantage of you. So call an attorney. If the insurance company is trying to take advantage of you, it's probably because they know your case is worth more than what they're offering you. So if you get those type of offers, give us a call or anyone else in the state and any other good attorney in the state anyway, and they should be able to give you some tips. I was going to talk a little bit about how they evaluate cases, but I think that's better in another podcast and some of the software programs that they use. So I will talk about that in a second or in another podcast at a different time. But biggest thing to watch out for after an accident, like the case killers that can destroy your case. Number one, not getting any evidence at the scene of who caused the crash, like, it's just literally letting them drive away. That's a bad thing. Not getting the police to respond or have any sort of police involvement, even if they don't respond and do a full report, which is definitely the thing to do, try to get them to do. But if they can't or won't do it, at least get a 911 audio call. That's helpful. If you don't have that, that can be a killer. Number three is not getting seen if you needed treatment. If you have any pain, injuries, whatever, any sort of inclination that it makes sense to get checked out by a doctor, you need to do it within as soon as you have any chance of being hurt from your crash. You don't know what you don't know. Let the medical professionals evaluate you. And worst cases, then you just have a medical bill that shows you're totally fine. Great. Great. That's perfect. That's what we want. I'd rather you be fine. And so would, frankly, anyone else. We prefer if this didn't happen to you. So, if you weren't permanently injured or anything like that. So I'd rather you be totally fine, but you don't know that. You can't just gamble on you being fine and then turn out not to be. It's better to be fine and get verified as fine, if that makes sense. Then, other than that, our recommendation again, there's a lot of moving parts in cases. Get an attorney involved. I don't know whether it's us or someone else in the state. That's fine. I'm not here to do a sales pitch. I'm just here to inform you of what I would recommend. And there's a lot of things you don't know about your case until you've had an attorney review it. So get someone involved who knows what they're doing. That is the end of the podcast about what to do after a car crash. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to give us a call. Our phone number is 303-766-8766. Thank you. If you're in Colorado and dealing with an accident or injury, reach out to us at Travis Legal Offices for your free consultation. You don't have to face this alone. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and remember, when life hits hard, you hit back.